chat, brand new video we got here. This is called The Psychology of Young Thug's Decline. Now, if y'all know me, y'all know I've been a big Young Thug supporter for the last couple of years. I enjoy his music. I enjoy what he brings to the game. I enjoy what he brings to the table, especially his versatility. His sound is so different. He's so unique. And I put Young Thug in my top 10, maybe even top 5. You feel me? Oh! And so just watching what he's been up to as of late has been pretty unfortunate and pretty difficult for me. But this video came up on my feed and I wanted to watch it and react to it with you guys. So let's go ahead and check this out. Once again, this is The Psychology of Young Thug's Decline. Let's get it. Let's go.
2019 Young Thug had just dropped So Much Fun, a #1 album that continued to cement his legacy. Fast forward 2 years to 2021, he was dropping Punk while also leading the charge of YSL Records with Slime Language 2. At this point, Thug's legacy was established, a genre-defining artist at his peak. But unfortunately in 2022, there was a RICO case waiting in the wings that would see him locked up for 900 days. Now, the man who walked out of prison would go on to dismantle everything he built with a series of decisions so chaotic, it became a masterclass in how not to manage a brand. Now look, I can read the comments already. I know some of you think that these case studies are overthinking or not that deep. Or some of you might even be asking, why should I care about the decline of another rapper's brand? And to me, the answer is very simple. Young Thug's decline involves multiple layers of psychological principles.
Before he says it, let me say it. Obviously, like, if you're ever in a position like this, you need to be able to see what not to do before you do it. I feel like that might be a little bit of what he's gonna explain as to why he's giving this. And if not, then that's obviously why I'm watching this video. Like, when you get to Young Thug's position, like, your head gets blown up so bad that you're just like, you're not as cautious. You think you could do anything, you think you could say anything, and that then leads your decline. Like, you think you got fans who are going to be behind you whenever, you think you can drop whatever, because you've just been so respected and so loved for so long, because you used to put in that effort. But once you take your foot off the gas and you're not putting as much effort, like, your fans can only give you so much leeway, and we're only going to accept so much bullshit, you know what I'm saying? Now, from somebody who's not in that position and doesn't have that ego and that head blown up yet, I could look at this and be like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? Once I get to that position, this is something that I need to be aware of. You know, my head might be blown up. I might not be listening to, you know, outside opinions. I might not, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
That destroy brands across the internet. Principles that without the right foundation could quietly and quickly damage your own image one day. Now, whether you're trying to become a creator, launch a startup, or hell, even a taco truck, if you're going to leverage your NIL, which is your name, image, and likeness in business, then you can fall prey to these 3 lessons. So in this video, we're going over just that, the 3 psychological principles that are behind the decline of Young Thug's brand. This involves the psychology of betrayal, Robert Cialdini's famous commitment and consistency trap principle, and in my eyes, what has become a full-blown identity crisis. Now, I'll break down all those in more detail, like how it relates to Thug himself, but also you, the creator. But to understand why these principles hit him so hard, you need to understand how he built his brand in the first place, because the unique principle used during his most successful era is something that most creators never even think about. The simplest answer is that I realized that Young Thug was ahead of his time. He saw the future that no one else did and willed it into existence. Now, that is a quote from a Medium article all the way back in 2022 that discussed the genius of Young Thug right before his arrest. Now sit back for a second and let me paint a picture of who Young Thug was before the RICO case and why that quote is so important. Thug was a kid from the projects of Atlanta, Georgia, who would go on to found YSL, or Young Stoner Life Records, become the godfather of the melodic trap sound using his voice like an instrument. He would go on to influence an entire generation of artists like Gunna, Lil Baby, and Lil Key, just to name a couple. He's also a cultural icon, a fashion risk taker, a genre-bending artist, and he's leaned away from conformity in the hip-hop and rap scene. And through all of that, he's established a brand identity as someone who is a fearless creator, a powerful leader, obviously a trendsetter, and he's just known for being unique. But here's what made him truly irreplaceable. Now, how rare is it that a man claiming street life, toting guns and music videos, fully embossed in gang culture, could go on the cover of Vogue in a dress? And then that same artist then went on to master that melodic trap sound, so much so that he was researched by linguists claiming his sound was the next evolution of language. Now, this unique combination of street credibility, vocal innovation, gender fluid fashion, and hip hop, which at the time of was somewhat unheard.
I mean, this is not new to me. I knew all this, but it's just like, man, it's such a goal, bro. How did you let this happen, bro? But again, like I said, like, all of these accomplishments, it gets blown up in your head. Like, he's not seeing things from the outside. He's just like, I did that, I did that, I did that, I did that. And then you get locked up. And in your mind, you don't actually think you're going to get locked up. You think you got enough money, enough power, enough influence to get out of it. Then when you start talking to people and trying to talk you out of it, you don't think it's gonna get out. Because again, you think you got enough money, influence, power to get out. You know what I'm saying? So, like, he's not seeing things realistically.
Constant artistic experimentation, which all came together to make him impossible to replace in the rap genre. Escape competition through authenticity. Now that line is a quote from Duvall, who is a prominent investor, researcher, writer, if you will, very well respected online. Now that famous quote will go on to aid another prominent writer and researcher, David Perel, establish the concept of a personal monopoly. And real quick, I'm going to quote him from his essay on the personal monopoly. The ultimate goal of writing online is to build a personal monopoly. It's your unique intersection of skills, interests, and personality traits where you can be known as the best thinker on a topic. Now what we're going to do is just take that line about the goal of writing online out of that statement, because it applies to all creator-led businesses out there. And in shorter words, and with that in mind now, the statement is very simple. You want to be the only person who does what you do. Now this set up Thug to be irreplaceable in the rap genre for the next decade of his career. That same logic can be applied to finding your niche if you're a beginner. People say either one of two things. You are the niche or you aren't the niche. Now I fall on the side that you, the creator, are the niche, for the simple fact that all the unique characteristics that you embody form a niche. All you have to do is pick a lane or an evergreen topic and mold your unique characteristics into that lane. For Young Thug, this was taking that love for fashion, experimental music, a rough upbringing, and using rap as his vessel to carve his lane in his specific niche. Now if you want to learn more about that and productizing yourself, I'll link a video in the description and in the card above. Now while Young Thug was building his own personal brand, he was also forming his own tribe. Now that tribe morphed into a group of people that were connected directly to Young Thug himself. YSL was much more than just a record label, in my opinion, or a gang if you're on the side of the courts. It was a clique. A clique with an amazing brand behind it. They had their own slang like slat, slime, push and pee, etc. They had an amazing branding identity with green aesthetics, the snake, all the jewelry that they always had on. I mean, it even got to the point where people like Drake, Future, Lil Baby, tons of artists would don that YSL chain without ever being signed. And all this culminated into the obvious signals of a healthy brand and great partnerships. So to be overly clear, Young Thug is not just another rapper looking for a bag or looking for fame at this point in his career. He spawned an entire movement. His sound, his vibe, his unique tribe that blended into his record label YSL, it lended itself perfectly to allow fans to identify with the brand as a whole, and for him, more importantly and specifically, establish that ever elusive personal monopoly. But as we will come to see, the stronger your brand identity, the harder it is to pivot when circumstances change. That's exactly what happened when the YSL Rico case hit, and it spawned the question, what happens when your brand is built on loyalty, fearlessness, and brotherhood, but then those things are taken from you overnight? Now as we get to talking about the YSL Rico case, I'm not covering every specific detail here, so if you're much more interested in the case itself, I will link a video in the description that goes over everything in a really succinct way. Now, if you're unfamiliar, real quick, RICO stands for Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act. It was actually a law originally designed to take down the mafia. So the feds were essentially trying to accuse Thug of running a criminal enterprise. What enterprise, you might be asking? Well, the YSL empire that Thug had just spent a decade prior building. 28 co-defendants, obviously one of them being Gunna. Now the important thing here to note is that Young Thug, his brand, his music, his lyrics, his tribe or his clique, everything that made him who he was, that aided in his personal monopoly, was now being turned into evidence of gang activity. So if you think about it on a weird and deep level, everything that made Young Thug who he is, everything that aided in his personal monopoly, was on trial. His identity was on trial. 900 days later, Thug was allowed to walk free after taking his own plea deal. Unfortunately for Thug, the world keeps moving when you're gone for that long, and the landscape had shifted. YSL was obviously scattered, some locked up, others distanced themselves due to the legality of the situation. Lil Key, Takeoff, and unfortunately one of Thug's baby mamas all passed away while he was locked up for those 900 days. Gunna, his protege, the artist that he put on, took a plea deal 22 months before that, and depending on who you ask, either saved himself or betrayed Thug and the street code. And it doesn't get much better for the fans. They had no idea how to feel, because for the 900 days that he was in there was really no official statement put out on the whole landscape of YSL, the connection between Thug and Gunna at that point. There was just a lot of questions that still remained up in the air, and due to that, a lot of people started forming their own opinions online. Some simply waited for Thug's release and would take a stance once they caught exactly how he was feeling, but others were jumping to conclusions online and professing their thoughts whenever they got a chance. And the idea here that I want you to understand is that the silence from Thug's camp caused people to not know how to feel, especially towards Gunna. Now that would be very beneficial for Gunna, as he was kind of free to weave his own story into the mainstream narrative, as he made a very successful rebrand. And if you want to learn more about Gunna's rebrand and the 3 pillars that he used to reposition himself within the rap scene, make sure you check out my video that I did on him. Now that would all change
This guy just be breaking down everything. Got a video for everything, bro.
Soon as Young Thug was let out, he turned to Twitter rants, podcast appearances, he had leaked jail calls. He would then have a very strange album rollout and erratic songs that felt a bit rushed. This all signaled to me that Thug was scrambling, trying to capitalize on all the attention, but struggled with his identity that no longer fit his reality. And that's what brings us to today, the current decline of the Thug brand. And something to think about is that it wasn't even the arrest that destroyed his brand. It wasn't even really the trial, and it wasn't even the extended time away, because we have plenty of examples of folks going through that same thing with success as they came back. Think like Gucci Mane, Tupac, etc. It was really just how he responded to all of it and those three psychological forces that were working against him. So let's go ahead and break those down one by one right now. Now, the psychology of betrayal. I think it's very clear we need to start with the most obvious wound, betrayal. And I think it's important to hear how betrayal played a hand in this from Thug himself.
Cause I just don't got my twin, bro. I don't got my friends, bro. I'm just fucked up. I'm fucked up, bro. The nigga who I be with every day, I don't got him no more, bro. I'm fucked up, bro.
According to Thug, his own father even put Gunna in a group text with him so they could talk, but Gunna never reached out. To Thug, that silence hurt more than anything. Even if I didn't want to hear it, you still supposed to be a man and say it, he said.
You signing that one piece of paper, signing your initials on this one piece of paper could get me a life sentence, man. Like, what? Come on, bro. I get a life sentence, all this piece of paper you signed, bro. Just cause you trying to get home fast, or you just trying to get to a hole, or you just doing a certain thing, bro. And you already done betrayed a nigga before, bro. Damn. A piece of paper, you gonna let a piece of paper in all this shit?
For Thug, this isn't just about court documents. It's about loyalty and manhood. He described Gunna's plea as breaking a man code, making it clear this wasn't about revenge or hate. In fact, he reminded everyone of the love he still has for Gunna and his family.
We men, bro. We brothers. Ain't no in the world making me go get Gunna. No nigga, bro. Damn. What?
But despite that love, Thug made his stance crystal clear. The only thing I'm ever gonna say is, you betrayed me.
The holiday big check event is on now at Sport Check. Save up to 60% off.
It'd be so unfortunate to see like the way that these grown men stand on business like that. But I get it, like it's a culture and it's a respect thing, but it's like, you know, like y'all could talk it out. Especially Gunna, like if they actually put them on like a group text and Gunna didn't reach out, like I wonder what reason Gunna had not to reach out. You know what I'm saying? But again, that's none of my business. Let me get back to what I do best.
Now, when Gunna took that plea, it obviously hurt Thug to a point he believes is beyond repair at the time of this recording. I'd argue that him building the YSL empire around street culture and in turn street code played a massive hand in this though. When you have a brand built on principles like loyalty and then that principle is proven to be false, it shatters the illusion of the brand itself. It's like a fitness influencer gaining 100 pounds. Those same workouts that they've been pushing and promoting and posting start to not look the same. You're left with nothing but questions and opinions on that person's brand from the outside. So what was Thug's response to this? Well, cryptic tweets, passive-aggressive IG posts, podcast appearances that are very, very reactionary. He essentially turned to social content instead of trying to heal on the back end first. And the brand lesson that we can all take away from this is very simple. Don't let your pain coming out of a crisis situation be your content strategy. Instead of processing the betrayal privately and moving forward with work, he's turned social media into a therapy session. Now, majority of the time, this is absolutely the wrong way to go about it. The reason why this matters is because your audience doesn't owe you any sympathy. They're simply here for the value that you provide. The music, the product, the information, the brand, not your personal grievances. So whatever you do, try to separate the bad things in your personal life from the brand you've been working your whole life to build. And that brings me right into the commitment and consistency trap. The drive to be and look consistent constitutes a potent driving force, often causing us to act in ways.
That's an interesting point though, because when I think about it, like I'm thinking about like some of like the influencers that I watch, right? Like let's look at DDG for example, right? He's a YouTuber who's made a lot of money and a lot of success off of putting his business out there and, you know, beefing and this and that and the third. And like again, you look at Young Thug, like that's not where his money and his bread and butter was at, right? Like as a Young Thug fan, like we don't care about your podcast, we don't care about your tweets, we don't care about this and that and the third. We care about your music. If you want to give us all these tweets and podcast information and snippets and whatever in the music, that's different, right? You look at DDG, like he built his brand on parasocials and getting people to be all in his business and whatever. So, you know, if he feels some type of way or whatever, he could just throw on a vlog and, you know, talk shit and then go rage bait and, you know, engagement farm in the comments, or he could toss a live or go to a podcast, or like, you know, he lives on the internet. So it's a little bit different for like an influencer versus an artist, but I totally get what he's saying.
is contrary to our own best interests. Now, that is from the book Influence by Robert Cialdini, where he covers in one of the chapters the commitment and consistency trap. Now, in that chapter in his book, Cialdini discovers something fascinating about human psychology. Once we publicly commit to an identity, we feel compelled to remain consistent with it, even when it's hurting us. It's why people stay in toxic relationships, defend sunk cost or failed businesses, or even why they can't accept a failing strategy that they thought would work. Now, this is due to human nature. You feel like changing course is essentially proving that you were wrong. Most egos cannot handle that. And applying this to Young Thug's situation, we get a very clear picture on exactly what happened. Thug built YSL on his core pillars, most notably brotherhood, which involves loyalty, and I would also argue fearlessness in all artistic pursuits, whether people seen the vision or not. So when Gunna took the plea deal, Thug was trapped in a psychological prison. If he forgave Gunna, he'd look weak and contradict everything he stood for. If he kept attacking Gunna, he looked bitter, petty, and stuck in the past. If he ignored it, the streets and fans would interpret his silence as weakness. So there was no winning move. Now, unfortunately for Young Thug, building brands in the rap genre oftentimes forces you into these immovable brand principles. Once you attach yourself to that street code, you have to abide by them in all aspects or risk being labeled as non-genuine. The lesson is
that goes back to what I was just saying. You know, I was like, damn, it's unfortunate that these guys hold themselves to certain standards, but like, he's right. Like, if, you know, Thug and Gunna were to mend or something, that would be a bad look for Thug. But again, like, does it matter? Because it'd be like, there's a lot of fans who are sitting here waiting for that. But again, like, that's a core pillar of his brand. So I don't know if the hit would be bigger than the gain. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't speak on that.
Take away from this is to try your hardest to not build your brand on one immovable principle, because if and when that principle is tested, you either evolve or you blow up. Now, how to get around this is to focus on being fluid. The strongest brands aren't rigid. They have a core offering for sure, I understand that, but they remain as flexible as possible. In this situation, Thug couldn't be flexible. He was too committed to what he used to be instead of accepting what he needed to become. And that moves me on to the last psychological principle of Young Thug's brand's decline, the identity crisis. And that brings us to the deepest, most painful factor. Young Thug doesn't know who Young Thug is anymore. And I don't mean that in the literal sense. I'm sure Thug knows who he is as a man and what he brings to the table. I'm simply framing this in the lens of his brand and what's next for him in his career. The issue to me is clear. Every move he's made since getting out has been about defending the past, not building the future. He's still fighting those same battles from 900 days ago while he was locked up, still trying to prove loyalty means something, still trying to correct the narrative about what YSL is and was, but he hasn't answered the only question that matters to fans, haters, media, everybody. What is Young Thug now? Not what he was, not what he lost, not what people took from him. What is he building toward? What does the next chapter of his life, of his career look like? So when I say Thug is in an identity crisis, what I'm really trying to say is that I don't think Thug knows exactly what the next move is. We can easily take a look at other case studies for a positive example of how you should come out of a crisis situation like jail or prison. His protege, Gunna, right, is now thriving without him, even though he feels like he betrayed him. He came home focused on the 3 principles for repositioning his brand, and he succeeded in every facet. You can even look at Gucci Mane, like I mentioned earlier. He came home from prison, was in incredible shape, dropped consistent and familiar music, but also didn't lean into any drama. He let his art, body, and everything else speak for itself. Hell, even Blueface, who's a more recent example of this, he just came out and went straight back to work, popping up on live streams, getting back in front of the camera, just getting back into the flow of regular everyday life, especially when you're at the heights of your personal brand. Now, outside of Blueface's strange face tattoos, I don't think he's actually done his brand any harm up until this point, although I will admit that he is very much teetering on that edge. Now, the big thing to learn here is to build a brand that can stand alone. Relying on external factors you cannot control for your brand is career suicide. Circumstances can change overnight and it will leave you in a sticky situation, scrambling to understand your identity and where you fit in all of it. Instead, build a brand that can stand alone, a one-person business that is built on your core pillars and your ideologies. What you create, what you value, and what you stand for are independent of anyone else's actions or opinions. This is the power that we have in 2025 with a one-person or solopreneur business. Those can't be taken from you. They are yours to create and move away from when you feel it is necessary. So if you want to learn more about this, check out the video that I did on how to productize yourself, or you can just wait.
I ain't gonna lie, bro, you doing too much with these ads, bro. Like, you got way too much promotions, bro. Like, chill, bro. But damn, that was pretty interesting. Like, I think he really broke it down. Like, it's very unfortunate, like he was saying. Like, the main point he brought up was Thug building his brand around being a certain way and having a certain mentality. And when that mentality got tested, he was like, damn. But it's funny because that's a conversation that I've been having with people around me lately, and I was like, bro, pride really is the devil, bro. Like, it could really mess us up, because I feel like I've seen it a lot when people decide to react or decide to crash out or decide to retaliate to someone or to a situation because of their pride and because they think that they've been made into a bitch, or because they think that they've been bitched, or they think that somebody, you know, belittled them, and now they think that other people might think that, you know what I'm saying, like they're overthinking. They're like, oh, somebody did this to me and there was witnesses, now these witnesses think away of me. If I don't react, these witnesses are gonna think, you know what I'm saying? And so this is Young Thug thinking, man, my audience is gonna think this, that, and the third, I need to react like this. But it's like, bro, when you stop caring about what people think, like, these guys are irrelevant. Like, and I'm not saying that Thug's fans are relevant, because yes, like, they make his money, they this and that and the third. But it's like, in the grand scheme of things, like, patching things up with Gunna would be way better for him and his career. Actually, I can't speak on that. I don't know. But I don't know, bro. Sometimes you got to do what's best for you and just stop caring about what other people are thinking. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, that was a very interesting video because, like I said, man, observing things like these are going to help us know better what to do and prepare ourselves when we are in these situations, right? Like, when our brand gets tested and when situations like that happen, like, we are going to be equipped with the resources to handle it, I hope. But let me know what y'all thought about the video, man. Let me know what you think of Thug's career as of right now, where it's headed. Are you still listening? Are you still supporting? Let me know. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.
All right. Yeah. I'm getting gritty on these niggas. I'm getting gritty on these bitches. Here we go, another talking again. Yeah. I'm getting gritty on these niggas. I'm getting gritty on these bitches. Here we go, another talking again. Yeah. I'm getting gritty on these niggas. I'm getting gritty on these bitches.